Welcome back to Bible Time. And in our reading through the Bible, our daily Bible reading, we're going through the book of Judges. And a couple of times we've gone over what would be a working outline for this book. And you might remember we said that the first two chapters describe the disobedience of the people of Israel. And it's the cycle that it's in and how they sin. God shows mercy. God raises up a deliverer, a judge. And then they enjoy a time of peace. But then after the judge is gone, they go back to their sin. But they don't just go back to their sin, they get worse. So it's a downward cycle of sin that's happening amongst the people of Israel. So that's described for us in the first two chapters. And then in chapters 3 through 16, we read of the deliverance. We read of the history of the judges that God raised up for the people of Israel. And we've worked our way all the way through them. Now today we come to chapter 17, which starts a new section. So we've had disobedience and deliverance. I wonder if any of you remember what the third part of the book of Judges is all about, what we called it. Well, what we called it was disaster. What you have here in these last 5 chapters is a couple of snapshots of life in the time of the judges, particularly in chapter 17, 18, which is one of the snapshots that we're going to look at today. There's no particular reference given or no indication as to when this happened. There's no mention of who was oppressing. There's no mention of who was judging. We don't know when exactly this happened during the time of the judges, but this is just a snapshot of what life was like during the time of the judges. And the key phrase that pops up here now at the end of the book in this disaster section is kind of the explanation behind it all. Chapter 17, verse 6, it says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." And then chapter 18 starts off with, "In those days there was no king in Israel." We believe Samuel's right in this book, and he's explaining the problems that they had with no king in Israel during those times and everybody doing what's right in their own eyes. That's going to be a setup for what's going to come with David eventually being anointed as king over Israel. But in those days, there's no king. Everybody does what's right in their own eyes, and that particularly related to their religion. They are worshiping the true God in their own way, in the wrong way. And throughout these chapters, you'll see references to the Lord. You'll see references to Yahweh. So it's the right God, but they're worshiping their way. It starts off here with this son, Micah, who stole some silver from his mom and then returned it to his mom. And she says, "Blessed be my son by Yahweh," there at the end of verse 2. I mean, parents always see the best in their own children. They see the worst in everybody else's children. They see the best in their children. She's willing to forgive her son here. And then she uses that silver to make a carved image so that she's dedicated it to Yahweh, it says in verse 3. So things are totally goofed up here. But Micah here, he's developed his own little religion with his own little gods, even though he's still calling on Yahweh. And he makes his son a priest. What a great deal! I got my own little backyard religion with my own gods, and I got my son as a priest. Well, then a Levite happens to come along, and Micah says, "What could be better than hiring a Levite to be my own little personal priest? This is fantastic." And so he just keeps adding to the "I'm worshiping my way" approach to his religion. And then, the Danites come by because they're on the move because they were disobedient and didn't take the land that God gave them, didn't trust the Lord and do what he said and get the people out and so that they could take their land. They never did that. So they're on the hunt for a new piece of property, and they find it, and they come on by and they say, "Hey, Mr. Levite, why serve this one guy in his backyard when you can come and serve our whole family here, our whole clan, our whole tribe, the tribe of Dan?" And the Levite, who apparently thinks that's like a big promotion, he goes along with them. So this thing is goofed up religion. This is personalized religion. And you know, that same stuff goes on today. We got designer Christianity, where it's a kind of a Christianity. You're worshiping the Lord, but you're still holding on to your idols and you're still doing it your way. And it's all about convenience, and it's all very individual, very individual. So today we're still trying to worship the true God, but maintain our idols. That idol could be your career. That idol could be your hobbies. It could be some interests that you have, maybe political interests that you have. It could be your family, could be pleasure, could be who knows what. But you're trying to worship God and your idols at the same time. You're doing the same thing Micah was doing, and the same thing the Danites were doing back in the day. And you're not intensely involved in the church as you should be in the New Testament. But let's just think through this backyard religion. Let's just see how this works out for Micah and the Danites. First of all, it creates a false sense of security. Micah has a false. I've got this stuff that's been dedicated to Yahweh. I've got all of the stuff that goes along with religion, and I got a priest. How much better could it be? And that's what he says in verse 13 of chapter 17. Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will prosper me because I have a Levite as a priest." Well, no, you don't know that, Micah. You know that as this makes my little personal religion thing all the more legit in my eyes, but it's not legit at all in God's eyes. But it's created a false sense of security. He says, "No, I know I'm right in the place of blessing. I got a Levite here living with me now." But this false religion that he's developed, which is like the designer Christianity of our day, where you have all these idols, it fails in the time of difficulty. It fails in the time of difficulty. Hey, he's got these gods set up in his house. The Danites come, they take his gods and his Levite. So what good were these gods? You know you're going to prosper. You've got these gods and you've got this Levite. Everything's going to go well. No, not until the Danites come and take it all away from you. And when they do that, he rounds up some neighbors and they go chasing after the Danites and are yelling at him. And they say to him, this is kind of funny there in verse 23, "What's the matter with you that you come with such a company? Why are you barking at us here, Micah?" And he said, "You take my gods that I made and the priest and go away, and what have I left? How then do you ask me, what is the matter with you? You've taken everything that matters to me. You've taken my gods. You've taken my Levite. How I thought I was going to prosper because I had them, and now you're taking them away. How can these things be?" And the guys from Dan say, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life with the lives of your household." You can lose a whole lot more than your gods and your priest here, Micah, if you don't pipe down. So this false religion, this false sense of security that he had, it absolutely failed in crunch time. And that's what happens too in a lot of people in churches. Their children rebel, their marriage starts to crumble, they lose their job, they get serious illness, and they fall apart because they're resting in this designer Christianity that they have developed for themselves. It's going to fail in times of difficulty. And this whole thing forsakes God's plan. It forsakes God's plan. In fact, it says there at the end of chapter 18 and verse 31, it says, "So they set up Micah's carved image that he made." This is the Danites. "As long as the house of God was at Shiloh." Oh, house of God. Remember that? The tabernacle, Ark of Covenant, where God's presence is and where the high priest is. And just not any Levite could be a priest. You had to be from the descendants of Aaron, and all of that's going on at Shiloh, and that's God's plan. Now, it might be a little more inconvenient. You got to go to Shiloh, but this is God's plan, and they've totally ignored God's plan. This is a real warning for us. The blessing doesn't come from you setting up your own religion. The blessing comes from following the Lord in reality and being obedient to him, trusting him. And that's what we learn from today's Bible time. Be careful that you're not trying to worship the true God in the wrong way. We'll see you tomorrow for more Bible time.